Hello YouTube, I'm up here in Cuyuna, got my Salsa, and there's the Skills Park. Miners Mountain is that way. I'm gonna ride Galloping Goose, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about this bike. I also went to Sickle. I got some gloves that actually match my bike, believe it or not. And I can't believe that I actually found this. So I bought a bunch of stuff, but this Ergon SM Pro titanium saddle, I've been trying to get more of these. This is my favorite saddle. So if you're ever wondering what a good saddle is, this is the one right here. This is a medium wide, which fits me nicely. Super comfortable. Can ride for hours on it. Butt never gets sore. So anyway, I'm not going to install that before I ride. I will probably do that tonight. As same with these grips, I'm going to try these out. They seem pretty sweet. These are the ones that don't have any weird shape to them. I don't like grips that have weird shapes to them. And just got a hat, some gloves for colder weather. I'm all set. It's almost 60 degrees, so I'm not going to need to wear my Epic layer, I don't think. Just go with the regular short sleeve shirt. Awesome. Let's get on with the ride. Okay, here we are, Galloping Goose on the Rustler. So, liking the new bars so far. Couple of cautionary things if you haven't noticed. There's a lot of leaves here and there on the trail, so I have to be a little careful in the corners. But yeah, this is going to be fun. So I'm still a little beat up. My knees are doing all right, but kind of tweaked one of my shoulders and a little sore. But I mean, I didn't pull up and do everything just fine. But if I don't ride some stuff that I normally would today, I'm okay with that. Hopefully you are too. And it's also with the leaves, things are kind of unpredictable, right? Oh, this bike just pops, just ping right over that table. But I do want to talk about this bike because I haven't really done a riding review on it. So here you go. This will be the riding review on the Salsa Rustler 2021 27.5 carbon frame. It's the SLX model, and I love it. Oh, this is the hairpin or switchback that I did the little how-to on. Oh, fall is beautiful, man. Ah, look at that. Beautiful. I thought the colors would have been changed more by now, but yeah. Pretty nice. So for starters, let's talk about how this bike handles. It's very responsive. It is equally as responsive as my Esker Hey Duke, and head angles aren't too far off from each other, and there's other factors that factor into how a bike handles, but head angle plays a big role. And of course there's trail and all that stuff, which has to do with your fork offset and all of that. But 27.5, this bike, super snappy in corners. And I hate to say it, but these slack bikes, they just feel like pigs in the corners. 65 degrees, 64, whatever. They're just, I don't like them as much. I'm sure they feel great bombing at speed, but talking too much, just completely forgot to hit that. Anyway, you know, those super slack head angles are made for going down the sides of mountains, not for this kind of stuff. Sure, can you ride them on this kind of stuff? Yes, but it's not nearly as responsive as like 66, 67, even 68, you know. It'll just float out of that. That's handling. Super snappy bike. Love it. And climbing. Salsa uses a suspension design they call split pivot. And I know there's people out there that are, well, that's just specialized and blah blah, they copied. Well, here's the thing about suspension. The suspension is an evolving thing. So one company will come out with something, and then another company will take what they learned from that and do little tweaks and evolve it more, and then another company will come, and so on and so forth. So over the course of the last 20 years, mountain bike suspension has evolved a lot, and not only just in the frame designs, but in the shocks themselves. How much valving and how you set rebound, compression, all of that stuff. And they've just gotten really good at it, to where full suspension bikes are pretty sweet now. Used to be climbing on a full suspension bike sucked, because they would just bob up and down and rob all the power you're trying to get to the rear wheel. But today it's very different, and the frame designs have gotten so good that I almost always just leave the shock in the full open mode. There's few exceptions where I will put it in the medium mode or the lockout mode, which is what this shock has, like those three modes. Just because when I'm climbing, the power, the way the split pivot works, as long as I'm seated, the power goes to the rear wheel, just like it would on a hardtail. I'm sure there's probably small micro losses of power versus a hardtail, but I don't notice them. I mean, I'm climbing right now and I just pedal and the bike doesn't bob or doesn't do anything. Where things get a little different is when you're climbing. So when you're standing and climbing, that's when you can really test full suspension on how well it handles that, what I would call slower speed compression. And the split pivot, I can tell a little bit that it's bobbing when I stand and climb, But for the most part, I stand and climb all the time and don't really care. Like, I just do it and it doesn't bother me. So whatever they did, they made it so standing and climbing on this bike is a breeze and not far off from what I feel with a hardtail. Hardtails are obviously just perfect, well, for standing and climbing, but suspension has gotten a lot better, and this is the first full suspension bike I've owned where standing and climbing is actually just something I feel like I can do naturally, like right here, and the power just goes to the rear wheel like I want it. And then the nice thing is if the rear wheel does need to go over stuff like those rocks I just went over, it does it. And it gives me plenty of traction because it's always on the ground. So that's my well, support for, or my props for the split pivot design right there. It's mainly the standing and climbing bit. I like it. We're up my Strava time to show you this view. That is awesome. Wow, this is what makes riding in the fall so perfect. It's about 60 degrees right now, like the perfect temperature for pushing hard. I don't feel like I'll get overheated. Anyway, Salsa Rustler, new handlebars, pretty sweet. And my gloves match. Man, does that make me a geek or what? So I'm gonna head over to Draw Point because I want to give this bike a little bit more full testing and some air time. I'll jump what I feel like I can, and then yeah, we'll do a final review. But before I do that, as I'm on my way over there via Galloping Goose here, is give you some specs on this bike. So the head angle, and I haven't looked up the exact, but it's got a 150 millimeter fork. So with that fork, it's around 66 degrees, I believe. Rear suspension is 130 millimeters. So the longer fork does make for a tiny bit slacker geometry. They do equip this bike with a 140 millimeter fork on some models, but I like the 150 because really it's up front where I feel like I need the more suspension on like hard landings and stuff. So so it's 27.5 wheels, 2.6 tires. So not quite a plus bike, but right on the edge or cusp of a plus bike. I believe if you wanted to, you could put plus tires on this bike. They used to actually call this the Pony Rustler, and it was just that. It was a 27.5 by 2.8, so that was a plus bike. So those are the specs. This is a small, and cockpit for me on this is 420. I did change out the stem and handlebars. That video is probably just a video or two before this one, and I like these bars a lot better than the stock ones. So the cockpit is set up for me. I'm only 5'7", if you're wondering. About 185, 190 pounds right now. I tend to fluctuate. Winter time, I get sometimes by spring I'm closer to 200, but my ideal weight, if I ever get back there, around 180, 175, 180. got a RockShox pike up front and a Fox float shock in the rear. Again, that's SLX components. Being that I've ridden SRAM and Shimano both recently, a lot of people will argue one or the other, but the SRAM GX setup I had on my Ripmo AF was pretty sweet. I loved how that shifted, and I love how Shimano shifts, so I won't argue one over the other. They both work really well. All right, we're gonna take this backcountry connector over to draw point. Oh yeah, let's hit this tabletop and then we'll talk about weight. Oh yeah. So I weighed this bike the other day and it came to just under 31 pounds. And it's in the same video where I put the handlebars and stem on. So that's pretty light for a full suspension bike. It is carbon. All right, I got some work to do to get to where was I going again? Totally forgot. Oh yeah, draw point. This is the entrance to draw point, but I'm noticing it looks like there's a little path takes us over to the lake right there, and because it's so beautiful out, I'm gonna take a breather and go over there and show you that lake. Interrupt this important program to show you nature. Amazing. I really hope that the GoPro is capturing the colors of the water, the sky, and the trees and stuff. That'd be awesome if it did. I'm just having a great time out here, just riding, enjoying being outside in this weather and seeing these views. This is insane. I mean, it is so gorgeous. All right, I keep showing you these. I'm a little spoiled right now. Some fun stuff in here. Pump rollers. Up, step down, table, nice. So, hip. All right, we're gonna take this rock descent. I did a video on this not too long ago. I'm gonna wait up for these guys because I don't want to catch up to them. Certainly not gonna hit that. Now I had to stop. Table. Yep. Nice. Another little step up. Huh. Manual, those things. Big rock garden. Whoa. Here comes some fun stuff. This is very similar to Lindsay's type riding right here. So, that answers that question. Can this bike jump and fly and ride park-like features? Yes, it can. And it does it beautifully. I'm a little out of sorts, but certainly not the bike's fault. The only thing that I do realize is this bike's a lot lighter. So as your bike is lighter, it does tend to get out of line easier in the air. So, well, with a heavier bike, they tend to stay in line more. So keep that in mind if you ever drop a few pounds on your bike. Take some time to get used to the fact that although it may be easier to jump, it's also easier to kind of float, tweak sideways, get blown by the wind, all those things. All right, let's get to the skills park, do a few drops, and then we'll end this review. Oh. All right, here we go. Taking the left line. And we're going to take the big line over here. So how does the salsa take drops? Beautifully. Here's another one. That's a harsh one, that rock sticking out. Yep. Takes drops like a dream. Okay, so there you have it. This bike is so rad. So this is by far my favorite full suspension bike I've ever ridden. So I'm definitely gonna talk it up. And I love my new handlebar setup. It's helm stem. So there you have it. Pretty much a pretty thorough review of the Salsa Rustler SLX model. Appreciate your support for my channel. Please like and subscribe. Peace. I am gonna go enjoy the rest of this just fantastic fall weather.